The numbers are in, and it is looking apocalyptic for Democrats. We already know that in the first 10 states to hold primaries, Republicans are showing a massive advantage with 60.9% of voters, and we're seeing historic turnout levels. This is to say that come November, it will not just be a red wave. It will not just be a red tsunami. No, my friends, it will be biblical. We are looking at a red great flood. Democrats, you best be building your ark now because it appears you will be washed away entirely. But I must state, there's a lot that can happen between now and November. So Republicans, don't count your chickens before they hatch. But the data is in from Georgia. And whether or not this means Republicans will win, we don't know for sure. But it's looking very good. In 2018, we saw 608,380 GOP primary voters. In 2022, we are seeing 1,109,506. How is that possible? Nearly doubling their turnout. Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, won easily her primary. Stacey Abrams also won her primary. But many are wondering how it is that Republicans were able to nearly double their primary turnout. I mean, this suggests when the general comes around in November, it is going to be historic levels. Now, one person points out in response to this tweet from Ryan James Gerdusky on voter turnout, Democrats voted Republican. And my friends, that is true. When I saw this, I said, this has to be Democrats jumping ship and voting Republican. It's the only way you get numbers this high. And as it turns out, like I said, it is true, at least according to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, AJC.com. But then you look at the real numbers, and it's only 16,000 voters. Only 16,000 out of 237,000. Now that we're seeing that it may be about 5 times that number in total voter turnout for 2022, we can surmise that perhaps the total number of voters who are Democrat and now voting for Republicans may be around 100,000. That's just me extrapolating. I don't know if that data translates very well. For all we know, it's only 16,000. But that was 16,000 of 237. With a total number at 1.1 million, we are looking at around 100,000 Democrats. This means if this trend is replicated across the country, Democrats not only will be defeated with record voter turnout, they will be defeated because no one's going to be voting for them from their own party. That is to say, if more people just go vote Republican, Republicans win. But if you have the combined effect of more Republicans and less Democrats, like I said, Democrats, perhaps it is time you prepared your ark. Whatever that means, I'm speaking figuratively, but get ready. It looks like you're going to get washed out completely. Now, as I said, I have had my string of poor predictions when it comes to politics, so a lot can change between now and then. Who knows? But primary turnout is an indicator of what you can expect in the general. And right now, all signs point to Democrats losing. Stacey Abrams, she won a primary. She says she's going to be the next governor. Sorry, if 10% of her voter base jumps ship, maybe 7%, and they vote Republican, there's absolutely no way Abrams will be able to win. So what do we see instead? Well, as sort of an inversion to yesterday's segment, we're seeing lawfare. We're seeing Democrats try to disqualify Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's the only thing they can do because she's winning. She's winning. She's in an R28 district. There's no way she can lose unless they disqualify her. And a court ruled that just the other day. Now, yesterday I focused more on that. Today I want to focus on what we're currently seeing. And it looks like with everything happening in Texas, the anger and hyperpolarization, there may not be a civil war. I know. Just yesterday I said we're getting ever closer to civil war, but maybe. What we're seeing is actually an illusion. An illusion caused by Twitter and big tech propping up the voices of people who are not popular and do not have popular ideas. The idea of civil war only exists in the minds of those who think that institutional power of the left is actually going to be mainstream enough. And maybe that's where I'm wrong. Fully admitting it. Maybe the Cenk Uygurs, the Ethan Kleins, these progressive, these liberal types, maybe they are a much smaller fringe minority than we realize. Maybe. Maybe the reality is you only need around 20% of the population for there to be a civil war. So the left, they can be, I think it's actually 13%, to be honest. They may be a small faction in terms of their fringe ideology, as we've shown with people jumping ship. But maybe that still is enough. Let's read about what's happening with the GOP voter turnout. Before we get started, head over to timcast.com and become a member to help support our work. As a member, you'll keep our journalists employed, our new opinion writers. You will get access to exclusive segments from the Timcast IRL podcast Monday through Thursday at 11 p.m. You will be supporting a company that uses Rumble infrastructure. Rumble is a new infrastructure company. They do the Rumble video player that is outside Silicon Valley. If you want to see this space grow, real competition to those who seek to censor our ideas, support companies that use alternative infrastructure like Timcast. And also don't forget to share this video. I'm going to stress this today. If every single person who watched this video or listened to this podcast shared it on social media or with a friend, we would be bigger than the corporate press overnight. Now, not everybody does. Some people don't want to, and I can respect it. You're under an obligation. But if you can't be a member, support us by just sharing this on every platform you have and telling your friends, just check it out. I know a lot of people don't want to. That is a big challenge. But let's talk about the realities of what's happening in the political space. And I think this information is greatly beneficial to Democrats as well. If they're wondering what's about to happen, let me show you the data. So don't forget, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show if you really want to help. I want to show you the first tweet, which I had pulled up. Ryan James Gerdusky shows in 2006, 419,000. In 2010, 680. In 2014, 596. In 2018, 608. 2022, 1.1 million. This is amazing. And you need to understand some important context. In 2018, Democrats took control of the House at a time when Donald Trump was president. How did this happen? It's actually simple. People don't like Republicans. That's just reality, Republicans. Y'all should pay attention to this. They liked Donald Trump. So in 2016, Trump got enough votes to win. But even then, it was only, I think, 77,000 votes across 3 states that put him above Hillary Clinton. So when 2018 came around, you got a lot of Republicans who don't like Trump, who don't care to vote. And you got a lot of regular voters who don't like Republicans at all. But the Democrats were incensed. So they came out and voted and won. Trump's supporters did not. That was the remarkable thing. This was the upshot at the New York Times reporting this. Trump's supporters turned out in low numbers. And Trump had been saying, you need to vote, otherwise they're going to impeach me. Well, now Trump's out. And this, I think, is massive. And I think it says something about Trump. I think if Ron DeSantis were to win, Ron DeSantis were to run in 2024, he would obliterate the competition. I think if Donald Trump were to run, he may actually lose votes because Donald Trump is a bombastic and divisive character. But let's be real, the media lied about him. So maybe it wouldn't matter who runs. I think, however, if Donald Trump were to run, he's going to win. Take a look at this. From AJC, The Jolt, data shows thousands of Democrats voting in GOP primary. AJC election guru Mark Nace, however you pronounce it, crunched the numbers and determined about 7% of Georgia voters who have cast GOP ballots so far previously polled a Democratic ballot 2 years ago. That's about 16,000 voters of the roughly 237,000 who voted in the Republican primary. If the total numbers now are 1.1 million for the GOP, 5 times the numbers they had just about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. If the number is still 7%, between 7 and 10, we're looking at just shy of 100,000 Democrats jumping ship. 7% may as well be 100% when we're talking about divisive politics at this level. I mean, you look at the numbers and 1 to 2 points. I mean, right now, with who do we have up in Dr. Oz and who is it, McCormick? It's like it's less than a fraction of, it's less than a point. I think it's like 0.9 or it might be a little bit more than that. It might be like 1. But it's when we're looking at elections, it's like fractions of a percentage point to determine who's going to win. If 7% of Democrats have jumped ship, that means you're going to see a 14-point swing. 7% of Democrats not voting for Democrats and voting Republicans, a 14-point swing, down 7 plus 7. That's going to be nuts. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene easily wins. This is what is shocking and angering Democrats. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not going to lose. She is not going to lose her seat in the general. This may as well be a victory, just like AOC, because the district that she is in, Georgia's 14th, it is Republican plus 28, 60% urban, but still Republican plus 28. That is really fascinating. But it's 56.58% blue collar. That says a lot. That says a whole lot. No, I think we're going to see Marjorie Taylor Greene sweep. And I think this just goes to show that the people, they do like her. Democrats filed to disqualify her, and that shows you what they're expecting. They know they can't win. This is their strategy. From timcast.com. Walker, Kemp, and Greene all claim victories in Georgia primaries. The state also reported the highest early voter turnout in its history. The Secretary of State's office reported that by May 20th, more than 800,000 ballots had been cast, 3 times the number of early votes cast in 2018. It is also significantly higher than voter turnout recorded during the 2020 election, despite speculation the passage of the Election Integrity Act would inhibit voter participation. Now, this is from 2020. This is from May 20th data. And it appears, according to Ryan James Gerdusky, that the current data from Georgia, 1.1 million GOP voters. It makes sense. If by the 20th, we're looking at triple the amount of voters in total, and now we're looking at Republicans only getting around double, I think it makes sense. We're seeing a big advantage there across the board. Over at AJC.com, turnout booms in Georgia primary led by resurgent Republicans. Once again, the data is showing 57% of votes so far were Republican. Now imagine, if 7% used to be Democrats, we would be seeing 43% Democrat to 57%. What's that number? That number is a 14-point swing, as predicted from the article 3 days earlier. Now, doesn't that say something? In 2018, I said I thought we would see Republicans win. I was wrong. Based on everything I had seen in the culture war, I said, how can a regular person vote Democrat? And I understand what I got wrong. Regular people in 2018 saw the appeal, the allure of 31 moderate Democrats. They said, we are not Donald Trump. We will bring you kitchen table issues. That's what they said, at least. And then as soon as they got elected, what did they do? They went to vote to impeach Trump. They pandered to all the culture war nonsense, and they betrayed the moderate voter. Jeff Van Drew in South Jersey said, I'm not doing it. Switched teams. Now he's Republican. In 2020, the projections showed Democrats would win. Boy, were they wrong. Republicans didn't take the House, but many areas that were considered to be leaning Democrat switched. They ended up Republican. Some areas, I think there were 2 districts that were safe Democrat, actually went Republican. Now, here's what I think happened. A lot of people want to talk about fraud and all that stuff, and I certainly think there are questions that should be answered, especially based on things like 2,000 mules. Absolutely. Should be an investigation. I don't know what else to say beyond that other than let's get an investigation, a real one, which we haven't had. We may, some speculate that we are. But I'll tell you what I saw. I saw voter enthusiasm against Trump higher than for Trump. And so you end up with people going out and voting. And I think that does explain why down ballot votes didn't go as well for Democrats, but it does explain why Republicans did not take the House or the Senate. Now in Georgia, they ended up winning. And I think I think it was Donald Trump's fault. The people who keep screaming fraud are engaging in voter suppression. Brad Raffensperger and Brian Kemp, I believe, both won. How is that possible? These are the guys who are supposedly against Trump. Trump endorsed Perdue, I think, against Kemp, right? It's because regular people, the ones who are voting, are not listening to that fraud narrative. But more importantly, those that do, don't vote. So please, regardless of what you think about any of these stories, theories, or anomalies, or outright criminal behavior, whatever you want to think, just please go and vote. And this is why. Check it out from Axios. Republicans parade Georgia's record early turnout. President Biden and other Democrats had attacked the state's new ballot restrictions as Jim Crow 2.0. What did Biden say? I don't know if it was about this. He's like, this makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. That may not have been for Georgia or whatever, but seriously. Early voting came in at nearly triple Georgia's 2018 level. Republicans argue the results refute Democrats' claim that the 2021 election law signed by Kemp amounted to voter suppression. Of course they're lying. Here we are at the 2022 generic congressional vote. Now, this spread is shrinking in the Real Clear Politics average. We can see Republicans with a 2.2 point lead. This is apocalyptically bad, and I'll explain for those who have not seen my other segments on this. When Republicans are down 5 points, they still win. When Democrats have a 5-point lead, they still lose. That means anything from Democrats below 5 points spells a Republican victory. At least historically. Who knows? Things could change. Right now, Republicans, while they have enjoyed such highs as a 4-point lead back in February, they're currently sitting at 2.2. Over at 538, the lead is currently 2.3 for Republicans. This means I think we're looking at, what are they expecting, 40 to 60 seats to swing for Republicans? They'll have the House. Then what? Well, look, it's good news that Democrats are getting rebuked, but they're going to put Kevin McCarthy in charge, and he's going to be like, nah, hold on, we shouldn't do anything. Mitch McConnell will end up being the Senate majority leader, and he's going to be like, I don't think we should do anything to Joe Biden. We hear it all the time from these Republicans. They're like, hold on there, slow down, Democrats. And then they do nothing. I love how Democrats genuinely believe that Republicans are steamrolling them. Have you ever seen these people on Twitter? They're like, if we don't get tough, Republicans are going to win. Republicans are so ruthless. These people are nuts. Sorry. The people who think the Republicans are doing something, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. Yeah, I know. I should try to watch my language because outright it's just obvious I'm not talking to them because I think they're crazy. But if you are one of these individuals who's listening, let me just explain something to you. When Republicans agree with red flag laws and Democrats want more gun control, that means the conservatives and Republicans and libertarians are losing. Republicans are not steamrolling you by blocking you. When Democrats say, we want gun control, and Republicans respond with, we don't want gun control, that is not balance. That is Republicans doing nothing. If Republicans were to come out and say, we want to repeal the NFA, well, there you go. That's the opposite of gun control, but they're not giving their voters what they actually want. Now, I find absolutely laughable. MSNBC's Nicole Wallace, Axios reporter, pushed GOP voter suppression narrative despite record Georgia turnout. Explain it to me. MSNBC hosts have pushed Republican voter suppression narrative. The funny thing is, not only is there record turnout across the board, Democrats are voting Republican. So what's your argument? Oh no, their votes are being suppressed. How? They used to be Democrat, now they're voting Republican. They're voting. They're here and in large numbers. Let's talk about where we're going as a country. We have this story from 11alive.com. Beto O'Rourke confronts Governor Abbott at Texas press conference. This is the state of this country. Beto is a bad guy. He's not a good person. They were doing a press conference to update people on what was going on, and he stands up and screams, it's your fault, and that's other nonsense. I highlight this because I genuinely believe we are headed down the wrong track. And it's mostly because people like Beto O'Rourke engage in performative nonsense. That's really it. 83% of Americans believe the U.S. has gone off the rails as midterm elections loom. Polls from the New York Post. When you have people going on Twitter who know nothing but believe they know everything, we're doomed. But that's always been the case, hasn't it? Seeing these people on the left be like, it's time for common sense gun reform. And I'm like, here, what does that mean? I'm a staunch 2A defender, but I'm willing to hear anything you think is common sense. They don't have any answers. They just do performative outrage. They claim that when a conservative is outraged over, say, the book Genderqueer, which shows graphic adult activities and language, they say that's performative outrage. These people live in a bubble. And that's why you're seeing post-liberals, like literally the existence of post-liberals or disaffected liberals, whatever you want to call it. You're seeing the rise of this because People who voted Democrat in the past who are paying attention are now voting Republican. So please, Democrats, wake up. Y'all are doomed. Elon Musk came out. He said he's going to vote Republican. Now we're seeing in Georgia 7%. That's a 14-point swing. Let me drive that home. People like me, I've been ringing the alarm bells for some time, and they're like, nah, Tim's just a conservative. I don't care what you call me. You can laugh your way into defeat all day and night. And then they're wondering why Republicans are going to win. They're steamrolling us, sure. The New York Post says, the Gallup poll found only 16% of adults surveyed said they are satisfied with the way things are going in the country at this time. 83% are dissatisfied with the remaining 1% having no opinion. The foul mood of Americans is an ominous sign for President Biden and Democrats as the congressional midterm elections approach. The low confidence rate in the state of the nation represents a considerable 6-point decline from last month. Democrat satisfaction plummeted 14 points since April to just 24%, accounting for most of the overall drop. Now, only about 1/4 of Democrats are content with U.S. affairs, the lowest point of Biden's presidency. Meanwhile, only 18% of independents and 4% of Republicans are happy with the status quo. The survey of 1,007 adults was conducted from May 2nd to the 22nd, as inflation remained at its highest point in 40 years. So they can come out, talk about gun control or whatever. Regular people just want to buy a gallon of milk. They just want to be able to drive to work. Democrats, you're not going to argue some other issue on this one. But I'll show you where we're at. Nick Hanauer. Oh, Nick, you're a verified Twitter user, entrepreneur, venture capitalist, civic activist, host of Pitchfork Economics, not a billionaire. Okay. He says, let me pray too. Dear God, please reach down in all your mightiness and give all of these Republican politicians terminal cancer. Let them die excruciatingly painful deaths and then chuck them into hell for all eternity. Amen. These people think they're the good guys. They think they're the good guys. I said, guys, I think if we don't change course, we're on track for a civil war. It could be. Ideas like this have always existed. They probably have. You just never hear them. But because of Twitter, everyone's become a public figure, and now we can really hear how much people despise each other and how much they're praying for death. You know, the old saying was that Democrats think Republicans are evil. Republicans think Democrats are misguided. That's still mostly true. But now I think we can see that they may be evil, actually, you know. Republicans aren't evil. Republicans, at least for now, consist of a wide variety of individuals, namely former Democrats in large numbers. They keep jumping ship, and they jump ship nearly 2-to-1 or more. We know that around 9 million Democrats switched from Obama to Donald Trump from 2012 to 2016. Democrats don't pay attention. That's the reality. That's it. Say whatever you want. They don't read the news. They might get their news from friends, but they have no idea what they're talking about. I will gladly, genuinely entertain a debate with anyone on the left. I am slightly leaning in terms of economic policy left. Slightly a centrist libertarian, right? Lib center is what people like the actual politicos call me. The left just says anyone to the right of them is a conservative, which is ridiculous. But I remember we had a progressive on just a couple weeks ago at Timcast IRL, and I kept saying this. What do you mean? What does that idea mean? What are you saying? It's mind-numbing. Conservatives just don't think trans people exist. What does that mean? They don't think they exist. What does that mean? Conservatives know trans people are real. Ben Shapiro's talked to Blair White. What does it mean? Are you arguing? They're saying that they're humans, but that they're not really trans or something? There were no ideas behind the phrase. They say women have a right to choose. What does that mean? When? They couldn't answer me. I've invited many of these people to come on and have these debates, but they don't have the ideas. They don't know. They just say late-term abortion doesn't happen. And I said, I don't care. Why legalize it? That's my question. No answers. Well, because sometimes you need to look. Sorry, dude. They've got no answers. And I think it's because they haven't read this stuff. And because I have, all of a sudden I'm conservative. If that's the name of the game, then I think the left is going to be destroyed completely. Salon says, after Buffalo, Trump threatens civil war. Mainstream media refuses to connect the dots. Did Trump threaten a civil war? No. No such thing has ever happened. What did Donald Trump do? The other day, he retweeted as it were, on his own platform, someone saying the words civil war. That was it. That's it. So if I were to report the news, I would tell you, Donald Trump reposts user who says civil war. That's it. What did Trump mean by it? I have no idea. Was Trump calling for a civil war? No. He didn't say those words. Did he predict one? No, he didn't say those words. Did he want you to see someone thought civil war for some reason? Well, I suppose a fair assessment, but still an opinion. By reposting it, he surely wants you to see it, but what does that mean? Is he for or against it? Maybe he thought the guy was wrong, and I have no idea. This is why I think it actually may be true that we're headed towards civil war. Calls for death, prayers for death, a major voter swing. The media saying that Donald Trump is doing something he didn't do for the upteenth time. Over and over again, they just keep saying it, millionth time. Then they come out and they pray for death. There are many people who have said similar things about watering the tree of liberty. How do you pull out of this? The worldview between those who are discerning and those who are uninitiated has become so pronounced. The one thing I can give credit to the Wikipedia editors for is that in my profile, they say Tim Pool rejects left and right politics and divides people among those who are initiated, uninitiated, or discerning. And what that means is there are people who have read the news and understand, and there are people who have not. That's really it. If you've read the news, then you know the arguments from the left on gun control make no sense. If you've read the news, you'd know that Joe Biden initiated tons of policies that negatively impact gas prices. If you read the news, you would know that Joe Biden interfered in U.S. policy in Ukraine to get a prosecutor fired. That prosecutor was investigating an energy company, the CEO of that company, where Joe Biden's son was on the board. That is not a moral statement. That is a fact statement. I am not saying Joe Biden did it for any particular reason. But if you read the news, you would know that. If you read the news, you would know that Ukraine interfered in the 2016 election to sabotage Trump. That's Politico reporting. If you read the news, you would also know that Politico then wrote a few years later that no, actually, that never happened. They haven't retracted either article, so I can't tell you which one's the real one. Although considering a court has ruled as such, I'd argue that the second article saying it was Russian disinformation is fake news. But those who don't read the news, who just get their information from pundits on the left, it's sophistry. They have no idea what's going on, and thus they're angry. They don't understand why you won't just do as you're told. I ain't playing those games. Quote, take away our guns and you'll learn why the Second Amendment was written in the first place. Republican Florida State Rep threatens Biden after his speech in the Texas tragedy and calls him an embarrassment. Yeah, I certainly think that's the direction we're going. Stop using guns to abort young lives. Whoopi Goldberg wants to deputize citizens to rat out neighbors with too many firearms. I'm going to just point out two things. One, Daily Wire, this is not fair, this headline. Whoopi Goldberg was exaggerating. She was being hyperbolic. She said, if you want to have people file lawsuits against those who get abortions in Texas, then why shouldn't we want people to rat out their neighbors with too many guns? She wasn't literally calling for it. She was trying to make a point that she thinks the abortion law goes too far, not that gun laws don't go far enough. But I suppose you can argue her intent. I think it's fair to say she was being hyperbolic. So maybe we'll be eaten alive by this. The Daily Wire, nobody's perfect, right? I like the Daily Wire crew. This article, I think, is unfair. I don't think she wants to do that. I think the fair headline would be, Whoopi makes point arguing in favor of something like that. But even then, it's an analysis. You know, so if you said Whoopi Goldberg says, that'd be fine. Saying she wants it, you're reading a little bit too much, I suppose. But maybe it's true. I can't read her mind. Maybe it's true. But if only maybe it's true, then I don't know how you write a news article based on that. We may be facing something entirely different anyway. George Soros, of all people, says Russia's war with Ukraine may be the beginning of a third world war and civilization may not survive. All right. Well, my friends, truly dark days indeed. Maybe this is what we're destined to have. Maybe there's going to be conflict and crisis no matter what we do. It's funny. Strauss-Howe generational theory predicts that around every 80 years or so, there's a great conflict. We had the Revolution, War for Independence it was. 80 years later, we had the Civil War. 80 years later, we had World War II. It is now 80 years later. So we had international conflict, internal conflict, international conflict. Does that mean we're going to have an internal conflict now? Why not both? Maybe this is the point where it bubbles over and we get a double whammy. The U.S. breaks up into some kind of civil conflict. China takes advantage. Remnants of the U.S. are struggling to deal with China and Russia. War breaks out. The fractured United States can't survive. Or maybe war with China breaks out and that forces the U.S. into some kind of tacit mutual agreement. I don't know for sure. And I don't think so. I think what would happen is that whatever side Republicans took, Democrats would take the opposite. Donald Trump would come out and be like, what China is doing is wrong. We must intervene to protect Taiwan. And then also the left would be like, no. I think what's really likely to happen is that the left would be demanding intervention. The right would be saying no intervention. And then they would just fight each other on it. You know, I thought, as many did, that COVID might unite people. It didn't. Everyone was just divided. And it was funny, too, because like the mask thing was the funniest thing ever. Democrats in the beginning were like, don't wear masks. And Republicans were like, wear masks. And then at some point they flipped. And a lot of Republicans say it's not about wearing a mask, it's about being forced to. It's like, I can understand that. But there were many Republicans who were like, I'm not going to wear one. Because they're forcing you to do it. Wear one if you want to, if you get sick, I guess. But then the funny thing is the right comes out and they're screaming masks don't work. And I'm like, that's tribalism, yo. You might say that masks aren't effective enough, in your opinion, fine. You may say the efficacy of masks and mask mandates did not substantially have an impact at the greater quarantine, whatever. You can make arguments all day and night, but masks literally stop you from spitting on people. I mean, it does. Is it going to give you the results you expect in a room full of crowded people? Maybe not. I don't know. But it's just funny that people were like, they don't work anyway. And I'm like, listen, you can argue it's not effective enough and you can argue against the mandates, but come on. Let's not be tribalist. Just because the left says masks doesn't mean you have to be opposed to them. Just because they're trying to mandate it doesn't mean you need to say they don't work. But look, the right's not perfect either. Tribalism exists. In my experience, though, I think because the right needs as many allies as it can get, and so do the post-liberals and, the libertarians, we're looking at a horde. A large group of different people with differing views that have united against a common wokeness. The cult, the establishment. And for that reason, people who disagree with each other are agreeing on bigger plays, like voting Republican, even if Republicans don't do anything. All in all, my friends, it's going to be a red great flood. Perhaps. Now, perhaps I'll be wrong. At any rate, the lefties will take certain clips from any one of my videos out of context to make it seem like I'm making definitive statements when I'm making hypothetical statements, and so be it. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.